uses the internet. Shop Etsy for special birthday gifts.
It should be based on how you live. Whether you're a casual
So I was browsing the mods on Fallout 4, as I'm known to do, when I just saw this. Like, before I even read anything about it, I just knew I wanted to make a run on it. Can you blame me? Sometimes you just see a mod that just catches you off guard and go, yeah, that's getting downloaded and messed around with immediately. If it wasn't obvious from the prior demonstration, the mod, as the name would imply, lets you turn your fingers into a variety of different weapons. Despite being born with hands, we will need to craft our lethal fingers from a chem station, but luckily, we can get access to one of those as soon as we get back to Sanctuary. I'll go over the finer points of what makes each finger blaster unique when the time comes, so with all that out of the way, let's begin. Starting at the vault entrance and its creation time. At this stage, since I was essentially going in completely blind outside of knowing that the finger guns were weapons, I decided to just mainly focus on endurance for living related reasons and agility for killing related reasons. Everything else kinda just got tossed around willy-nilly, if I'm gonna be honest. Although I did make sure to start with 3 in Charisma this time. The 15% damage reduction from the Lone Wanderer perk is just way too good to pass up, considering I never take allies. I also named him Han D.
Oh, a Colorado order? Ethan, you're officially on our favorite orders to pack list. Here's your mocha.
Laugh. In terms of his appearance, I just went with some cross between Revolver Ocelot and Sam Elliott. Or, in other words, just Revolver Ocelot. Perhaps I am still bitter about losing all that footage for my Ocelot New Vegas run, who can say. Anywho, we get out and book it straight over to Sanctuary, and the very first thing I do is move the chem station over to the other workbenches. Don't really need to do this, but it's nice for convenience. Interacting, and it seems if I wish to craft a finger, I will need nuclear material. I would have assumed bone and leather, but sure. I checked just about every single house bar my own and have zero luck finding anything that gives nuclear material, which is oddly ironic given the setting. Get me a knife and I'm certain I could scrape some off of the old car. Or Codsworth. Turns out though, my old home is in fact housing some good old nuclear material, and it's found in the blast radius box in Sean's bedroom of all places. What if that was leaking nuclear material all the way back before the bombs dropped, and due to being in such close proximity to it at all times, this is what inevitably led to Sean getting cancer later in the story. But that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. I miss him so much. Now that I have the materials, I can take them over to the station and craft my hands into far deadlier weapons than a pure unarmed build would ever allow. I equip the hand, which is something normally saved for single people on a lone Saturday night, but in this case it's to test out the weapon. The animations are what really sell this mod, so I'm just gonna let you watch them for a moment without me talking over the top. The reload animation in particular is S tier, if you ask me. Fun fact, we can actually modify the hands into some different variants, 6 to be precise, 3 that change the firing speed, and then 3 variations of those that allow you to dual wield. None of these cost any more resources, so if I can find some more nuclear material, something that is very easy to do once I meet my first vendor, I can make all the variations and then test them out. For now, I just go with the dual base finger guns, that's the semi-automatic ones. But I am incredibly curious to test out the revolver and especially the automatic versions once I have the materials. Also, I believe they will make rather effective stealth weapons, as I'm just gonna go out on a limb here and assume that they are silenced. The damage they are pumping out even without stealth crits is pretty great for the early game, mind you. Granted, it doesn't take much to put down these raiders anyway, but still. The dual finger guns are giving me some real Liquid Ocelot vibes, I must admit. Only thing that could make it better would be some MGS4 appropriate sound effects. During all of the finger banging chaos, I gain a level and decide to up my non-automatic pistol damage. This may have been a tad overkill, not just for the raiders, but even the Deathclaw goes down rather easily after some very aggressive pointing and laughing at his belly. Oh, and for those of you wondering, the finger guns do still work in power armor, and this is what it looks like. As wonderful as that was, I opt to not use power armor this run. Kind of a thing with modded weapons is they tend to get very powerful very fast. After all, you don't want to make something that's only scaled to low level players. So with that in mind, I feel also cranking up my defense with power armor would be a bit much. I'm not saying I'm doing a naked glass cannon run or anything, as after all, it's not particularly difficult to get high quality armor without any crafting in Fallout 4. I send the Minutemen on their way and I go off to meet Carla to get that sweet, sweet nuclear material and, by proxy, deal with Wolfgang as he's in the area. Also, yes, this is the melee animation with the fingers. Like everything else, it's perfect. I do a little more exploring and exterminating before making my way back to Sanctuary, where I craft a single-hand revolver and some of the dual rapid-fire fingers. The revolver has its own unique animation after every shot, as you might imagine, whereas the auto pistols just use the same as the semi-auto finger guns. That said, however, what they may lack in unique animations, they most certainly make up for in their sheer damage output. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, these things are nuts. I was able to effortlessly down the sentry bot at the nearby junkyard, as well as all of the rabble infesting Satellite Station Olivia. I don't really have a rule on which of these finger variants I can or cannot use, so throughout the run I'm just going to kind of swap between them whenever I want a change of pace. I'm also probably not going to see the Minutemen's quest through to completion this time, seeing how I did that in my last Fallout 4 run, but still, helping them out leads to a lot of easy experience from all the settlement babysitting, so I focus on them for the time. With that in mind, after my murdering in the station, I head on over to 10 Pines Bluff and offer them my aid as well. Not that I think they need it, seeing how this one appears to have mastered the after image technique. For once, they don't send me to the assembly plant, but rather they are annoyed about the ferals crashing at the nearby station and want me to put a stop to them instead. Hey, it works for me, it's way closer than the plant, plus ghouls take less time overall to deal with than Jared and his misfits. With them out of the picture, I turn in my quests to the 10 Pines Bluffians, as well as give the Abernathys back their locket. I then return to Preston, where I am briefly praised, before being sent on yet another settlement recruitment quest. Oberlin is up next, but rather than head straight there are a few other noteworthy locations I wanted to tackle first. I'll keep the first two brief. It was Sunshine Tidings and the Federal Rations stockpile. The first was for another settlement that I wouldn't be using, and the latter was for some XP and easy to grab healing supplies. Plus, like any weapon restricted run, every other weapon I can pry from the raiders' grubby little hands is basically just caps waiting to be used. Don't think I have mentioned it yet, but as you would expect, despite there being reloading animations for the finger guns, they never actually run out of ammo per se. Meaning, all my ammo is also on the cards for easy profits. After successfully raiding the raiders, I head south to mark Fort Hagen for later, and while there, have a very brief run-in with some super mutants. And I do mean brief. They really need to learn not to send their disposable bomb guy out front. I stare at a nearby blood moon, thinking of things that shall hopefully come to, before engaging in round 2 with the mutants. Specifically, the ones chilling down by the water treatment plant. This went poorly. Repeatedly. Sure, super mutants are naturally more tanky than your average raider, but my damage output was still more than enough for us to be on an even playing field. Really, the only problem here was that one with the damn missile launcher. Missile launchers really are just my freaking kryptonite in this game, aren't they? Anyway, I didn't exactly have the defenses to shrug off a blast from it, meaning he just kept blindsiding me while I was attempting to deal with all of his friends. It took a few tries, but eventually I was able to deal with him first before alerting the rest of the green team, which led to me very slowly picking my way through them without too much hassle. Inside the plant and the Mirelurks were a welcome break from the old meat rocket experience I'd just been subjected to over and over again. Simply hitting them on their squishy underside with a few well-placed is more than enough to make some crab rangoon. I hit level 8 during all the shell smashing, and for fun, even though I really don't need it, I take the automatic weapons perk to increase the full auto fingers damage. If they weren't overpowered before, whoy, they sure as hell are now. With all the Mirelurks gone, I restart the water plant, and since I am now finally in the area, pick up the request from Oberlin Station. Naturally, now they want me to head on over to the Corvega plant, because it is in fact an inescapable dungeon that you will go through and purge if you wish to help Preston in his conquest over the Commonwealth. It's all pretty standard stuff as usual. The only initial difference was that I was approaching from behind this time, due to me coming from Oberlin and not 10 Pines Bluff. All that really meant was that I would be disposing of all of the raiders outside before making my way into the building. When the time came to do just that, I immediately noticed that something was off. The lighting, to be exact. For the record, I have no other mods installed for this run, and I highly doubt the funny lethal hands are causing the issue. So, I guess we will just chalk up the darker environment to some good old-fashioned Bethesda tomfoolery. No, really guys, that next-gen patch was great. Stellar work. Real talk though, I kinda like the darker atmosphere that this is providing for the moment. Kinda gives me Metro or Stalker vibes. Well, as much as it can, I suppose, given that I am still dealing with all of my problems by aggressively wiggling my sweaty palms at them. While difficult to see when more than 10 feet away from me, there wasn't a whole lot that made these raiders stand out over the others we've swept past so far. Some of them were scum, so that's something. Jared himself was a complete pushover as I once more made use of my silent but deadly stealth crits to one-tap him from across the room. Turning those assignments in, I begin making my way over to Greentop as by my calculations I should only need one more settlement to have Preston move himself over to the castle to start the crab crushing competition. The lighting issues plaguing the Corvega plant have managed to seep their way into the outside world and have created this glorious piss lake. Now, I may have taken the Waterboy perk by this stage to avoid taking unnecessary radiation damage in water, but there is no way in hell I am swimming in that. Naturally, I can fix the problem by just exiting and restarting the game, proving, once again, all problems truly can be solved by simply turning them off and then back on again. Back on track, and I end up running into that scripted Deathclaw in the hole. Not much to say about this one, was easily able to pick him off before he could even find a way to close the gap between us. Right, onto those last band of settlers that can suddenly not protect themselves. Their problem is once more ghouls, this time the ones over at the National Training Yard. I begin by picking off some of the turrets at a distance before the resulting explosions of their demise attract some of the ghouls to my location. Figured it would make more sense if they ran towards the boom, but whatever. Probably a good time to mention that I have absolutely no idea what the range is on the finger guns, or more accurately, at what point it starts to fall off or become less accurate. Like, I have none of the perks yet that increase hipfire accuracy, and yet I am having no trouble hitting most things at a distance. You know, it's kinda like blind firing with the Lincoln's repeater in Fallout 3. Oh god, I mentioned Lincoln. No god, please don't!
Hey everyone, big heads up, Paleo Valley's running a sale on all their meat sticks right now. You can get 30 sticks for $36.
Automatic or semi-auto doesn't really matter, the ghouls are squishy enough that both put them out of their misery after just a few shots. Seeing how it's in the building, I also grab the holotapes off the deceased Brotherhood member. It's not a mandatory quest to join up with them, but it's quick and has a lot of XP up for grabs. Not that I need the levels, but who doesn't like being stronger? During the destruction of the Ferals, one of the legendaries dropped a rather decent unique double-barreled shotgun with the effect to shoot an additional projectile. The only two more fun than that, off the top of my head, would be the Never Reloading mod or the explosive rounds. Alas, none of that matters, as in the end I cannot use it, so it's getting sold the very instant I make it to Diamond City. With the ghouls dead, it was time to turn in, and as expected, have Preston begin the retaking of the castle. However, we will not be joining him just yet. Yeah, I figured I may as well do the Lost Patrol quest now, as all three of the corpses and tapes you need to find are in the same general area. Plus, I have a small bone to pick with the super mutants at the satellite array. They may not be the same as the ones down at the water treatment plant, but I do not care. I haven't leveled up much since then, so I guess I'll just chalk up these ones as weaker, as they did not cause me anywhere near as much trouble as before. Granted, they also don't have a crack shot with a missile launcher, so there is that. I grab my second holotape here after dealing with the final mutant, so that's 2 down and 1 to go. Fortunately, the last one is the most straightforward of the bunch, as I'm pretty sure it's the one you are meant to find first if you were starting the quest the intended way by getting it from Dance after joining the Brotherhood. You find it amongst a bunch of dead Brotherhood members in the remains of this destroyed building with 0 enemies nearby. With all 3 of them, I can get the coordinates for the bunker, where I can then convince Brandis to come back to the Brotherhood. Or at least that's what I attempted to do. Ah well, doesn't change much in the grand scheme of things. All it really does, as far as I'm aware, is have Brandis show up during the final mission. On the bright side, I did get 5 fusion cores in total from his bunker, so I'll be eating good tonight, so to speak. While I could go meet up with Dan Snow, I figured I may as well see the Minutemen through the castle. Although, if I am meeting the factions and I'm heading southwest, I could swing by the Old North Church to pay the railroad a visit, as it is on the way. Now, we all know where this is about to go, but I decided to start it in an interesting way. See, since the wonderful next-gen patch last year, there has been this glitch where sometimes when you activate VATS, you can just straight up see people and lock onto them through walls, and even have a semi-decent chance to hit them. I know there is a perk that lets you do this, but I don't have that perk on this character. This is a glitch. Not that it matters, as if you actually try to shoot them, nothing will happen, as naturally your projectile will just hit the wall between you and them. However, crits in Fallout 4 can never miss. So, I decided to save a banked crit for this very moment, and sure enough, I was able to shoot Desdemona straight through their stupid secret door. Sadly, this doesn't kill her, so it's not as wonderful as it could have been, but oh well. I just input the password as normal, and then start aggressively pointing at everyone any chance I could get until I was the sole survivor. Again. From one vermin extermination to another, it was time to deal with the Mirelurks at the castle. There are some higher tiers of crabs when compared to the treatment plant, so I make sure to stand back and take them out before they can close the distance. Those claws can tear through you something fierce. Exhibit A, the one time I did not stand back. Next try, and history very nearly repeats itself on multiple occasions. I'm able to momentarily get away from him when I accidentally walk off the ramparts though. This gives some brief respite, although not for long. Not only is he hot on my heels once he finds his way down, but due to all those eggs we scrambled, the Queen has also shown up and already causing a ruckus for Preston and the others. I keep retreating all the while firing pot shots at the legendary Mirelurk, and things do get a little rough here and there, what with him managing to pinch me again. Luckily this time I was at full health, so I was able to tank the hit and just heal through it. After about a minute of just luring him around the outskirts, I'm finally able to put him down for good. His legendary item is an unyielding leather right leg, which is neat. +3 to all stats when at 25% or less health could potentially come in handy at some point. Not important right now, we need to deal with the Queen. Not gonna lie, she was much less stressful than that legendary. While, yes, my blasting would get her attention, she never seemed all that interested on leaving the interior section of the castle. This meant I was free to just kinda shoot away safely at a distance, and only occasionally duck behind the wall for cover. To be honest, I spend most of this fight giving her children the stern finger wagging, as while she is busy eating Preston, they keep trying to nibble my toes. She eventually loses all interest in me entirely, and began heading for the high ground. But, luckily, by this stage she was also low enough that a few final shots were all it took for me to emerge victorious. I then set up the radio, turned in the quest to Garvey, and then proceeded to venture forth from the castle and never return. Walking through downtown Boston on my way to the castle had me marking a lot of story-related areas on the map. Combine that with me getting the location of Fort Hagen earlier, and I figured now was as good a time as any to get through the first act of the main quest. Had a nearly flawless encounter with Swan before going in to rescue Nick. Couldn't tell you why, but he just wasn't as aggressive today. The only hit that he did manage to land was right at the end when he clocked me square in the head with a piece of thrown debris. The best part of taking out Swan this early is of course the armor that he will drop. It's not unique or anything, but taking him out this early essentially guarantees that you will get a substantial upgrade to at least one part of your gear. I was lucky enough to get a heavy metal right leg as well as a sturdy metal chest piece, both of which are much better than whatever I was wearing previously. Sure, I'll lose out on the stat increases from the legendary leather leg I had, but they were only going to be effective when I was basically on death's door anyway, so they weren't going to be all that helpful in the grand scheme of things, I think. The triggermen by the entryway are just cannon fodder, same as usual. The section in the tunnel is filled to the brim with them like normal, so I opt to go in with stealth and just silently phrasing, silently shoot as many as I can. This stealth approach wasn't entirely necessary. What with the armor I just got, I could probably easily just walk through and tank their hits. Needless to say, the rest of the extraction mission went off without a hitch. The encounter with Skinny and Darla plays out like normal. Skinny is so busy flapping his gums that he doesn't react fast enough to my prodding and ends up dead before the rest of them can really comprehend the situation. Darla gets a few good hits in on me, but that's a given. That woman is a menace with her bat, easily the strongest of the 4 enemies here. Fortunately, I can survive having my brain rattled around in my skull just long enough to crack my knuckles and put her down. A few more shots from me and Nick then mop up the final 2 guards, allowing us to move on with our day. Naturally, you would assume I'm off to Diamond City next to move the story along so that Kellogg will be in the fort. Well, that's not what I did. Rather, I met up with Paladin Danse and helped him with the whole ArcJet situation. Not much worth going over seeing how he can solo this mission, and even with my help, he does most of the work. To prove my worth even a little bit to him, I did decide to forego melting him to a crisp and actually stood my ground and fought off the synths until they stopped sending in reinforcements. After which I hand over the transmitter and just like that, we are now a member of the Brotherhood of Steel. I accompany Danse back to the station and after some unskippable dialogue, I try to tell him about Brandis' squad. Sadly, turns out he won't accept them or even acknowledge them until you do one raiding quest for either Rhys or Halen. I choose Halen simply because Rhys is a prick. Very straightforward task here, I simply need to head on over to the Beantown Brewery and clear it out. Okay, that's a lie. I'm actually here to retrieve some old world technology found in the end dungeon chest, but hey, any excuse to go on a morally righteous sanctioned murder rampage is fine by me. I bring the scrap back to Halen and then turn over the holotags and tapes to Danse. Don't get anything other than some caps for doing so, but that's only because I got the XP reward earlier when I gunned down Brandis. FYI, I did not mention that last detail to Danse, as I don't think it was necessary.
Listing your vacation rentals on Booking.com opens the door to more guests, which could lead to a 10, which could lead to, ooh.
Before getting my shit together and getting on with the plot, I made one final detour, and it was to Hubris Comics. Not to just clear out the ghouls for XP, but I won't pretend like that wasn't fun, but to also complete the short Creation Club quest to get the Iron Helmet from Skyrim. I thought it would have looked very funny with my character, but it ended up removing both my head and facial hair. So, to hell with that, I just went back to my Willy Wonka glasses and whatever other absurd headgear I decided on. Alright, finally, Kellogg time. Look, considering the grief he gave me in my last Fallout 4 run, this was one of the most cathartic kills I have ever gotten on the bald bastard, regardless of how simple or sloppy it was. After the final normal pistol shot, he looked like he was still clinging on to life, albeit barely, and at that moment, I realised I found a use for the revolver finger gun variant. I can use it to execute people. If this goes how I think it will, I should get at least one more use out of this before the end. Right, next up was the Memory Den and Journey to Virgil segment. A part of the story that never really changes all that much, so instead, let's talk about a random short side quest of my own that I went off on. My goal was to get the Free Fall leg armor. It's a set of left and right leg armor that, when worn at the same time, completely negates all fall damage. So basically like being in a suit of power armor without the superhero landing at the end. Personally, I cannot see myself getting a ton of use out of them, but I've actually never even attempted to get them before, so I figured it could be a fun thing to scratch off my Fallout 4 bucket list, so to speak. We start by heading to the location housing the legs, which is actually none other than Mass Fusion. We'll be coming back here later in the story when it's filled with synths and Brotherhood soldiers. As for right now though, it's just occupied by a small detachment of gunners. Nothing too special, although their leader is in a suit of power armor. Doesn't do much for his offensive capabilities, but he does take slightly longer to take down than your average grunt, so that's something. Now, for the actual retrieval of the legs. Those of you who know about them are probably wondering how I am going to get them. That's because one thing I have neglected to mention up until this point is that the legs are in an area that is inaccessible by normal means. You are supposed to get them by using the jetpack upgrade on a suit of power armor. I, of course, do not have the intelligence nor the necessary ranks in the science skill to craft a jetpack. To be honest, I actually have no idea if they even have a chance of spawning out in the sets you find in the wild, but something tells me they won't spawn. So, where does that leave us? Simple. Glitches, of course. Not as absurd as the last challenge, don't worry. This is actually a glitch I have seen used many times before in speedruns of these games, but I've never attempted myself. Turns out it is incredibly easy to do, and thanks to watching this tutorial video by SaintsFan from nearly a decade ago, sweet Jesus, I was able to figure out where exactly I needed to go. Basically, you just need to grab a big enough item, this trash can seems to be the go-to, and then while holding it, back up into a wall while looking down, and you will just begin to scale up the wall. Takes me a few tries as I keep missing the window and falling to my death, but after a few minutes I can get it down rather smoothly and slip right into the room housing the legs. Thankfully, the safe only has a novice lock, so I can pick it with zero issues, and just like that, I never need to worry about fall damage again. Fun fact, reading the terminal reveals that these legs are just a big reference to the boots of Spring-Heeled Jack from Oblivion's Thieves Guild questline, and we all know how much I love Oblivion, meaning I also now like these legs even more. I get some use out of them right away as I dive out of the room, followed by me hopping off the balcony to street level. Seeing how I was in the neighbourhood, this was when I went to Good Neighbour and did all that stuff I mentioned before. Skipping ahead to Green Tech, and it was a nice change of pace this go around of being able to actually deal with the gunners as opposed to just having to pretend they didn't exist as I sprint past them. Also, due to me having usable, viable weapons and the fact that I have ventured off on more than one account and been using them non-stop throughout this run, I have gained enough XP at this point to already be pushing level 20. I have also taken all relevant damage and defense based perks that would come in handy, such as Gunslinger, Toughness, and even Refractor after spending a few levels to bump up my perception. What I am trying to say here is that I am dishing out a ridiculous amount of pain on these gunners to the point where I don't even have to worry about my arch nemesis, the random missile wielding gunner on the 3rd floor. You can see the Refractor perk's energy resistance at work whenever I face down the Courser, as this normally deadly opponent is an absolute joke when he can barely tickle me, and as such, I proceed to retaliate with the guns of the Patriots. After sifting around in his brain oil, I find my second cybernetic implant of the day, and take it back to have it analysed at the Old North Church, all the while making sure not to step on any of the strawberry jam seeping out of the railroad's orifices. Alrighty, teleporter construction time. In 10 minutes or so. First I must help Maxon out with the Super Mutants at Fort Strong. Yeah, I could just go and have the Minutemen build it, attack Father, and then do their version of the nuclear option to have this whole thing wrapped up in the next hour. But it has been a little while since I fully sided with the Brotherhood, so I thought it would be fun to go along with them. Plus, being on the Prydwen means I can make more use out of the freefall boots by just jumping off the blimp at a moment's notice. Besides, it's not like I need to worry about too much. A substantially weaker version of me was able to effortlessly brush aside Swan earlier, so it stands to reason that the other Super Mutants and their behemoth at the fort won't fare much better. And I was right. Killing the behemoth also got me to level 20, so that's cool. The interior cleanup section is smooth ceilings as well. Bit of a snag in the lower levels, as one of them is packing another missile launcher, but so long as I don't take too many direct hits from it, I can easily return fire and emerge the victor. Before reporting a successful purge and building the teleporter, I, for whatever reason, decided to make use of the fact I was now level 20 and travel to the CIT ruins so that I could witness the alien spaceship do its crash landing. I gain nothing from any of this, but thought it would be funny to take out this literal otherworldly creature with nothing but a stern point. Enough lollygagging, may as well get on with what's left of the main quest. Getting teleported in, and I quickly make my way for Father, where for the very first time I may in fact be older than him. Against my better judgment, I do not begin finger painting the walls with his blood, but rather stay my hands just long enough that I may get the ability to teleport out, although not before meeting the other heads of the divisions, the most important of which being Dr. Lee. If I was smart about this, I would have leveled up my charisma more beforehand to just convince her to leave, but alas, that was not happening today, so I was off to the back rooms to fend off some assaultrons and get her the proof that she needs about Virgil. Oh, and like clockwork, I completely forget to grab the serum for Virgil. I swear I don't do this on purpose. Anywho, with Lee convinced that the Institute are only marginally worse than the Brotherhood, she agrees to rejoin, and as such, we immediately leave with her to report our success to Maxon. This now leads us to our main goal, rebuilding Liberty Prime. First off, we need a high-powered magnet for his actuators. Normally, the best and quickest way to go about this is just head on over to Myrna and Diamond City and simply buy one from her. Although it has been a while since I ran off and checked out the location that they tell you to search for one, so I figured it could make a fun distraction for a change. It appears I was even sent some backup to assist in the retrieval. Sadly, they were in a vertibird, so we know how that story ends.
Red licorice or black licorice? I say both. Oh, you think you've had licorice? You buffoon. Only those of experience in licorice.com have quote-unquote had licorice. A curation of delicious flavors, shipped fresh in just days. Scurry over to licorice.com to try licorice and get...
The building we need to search was Milton General Hospital. The surrounding area was crawling with super mutants, nothing I hadn't faced before, of course, but as luck would have it, most of them were of the self-exploding variety, so a couple of well-placed shots fixed that. Mess rightly. I figured I'd be dealing with more inside, but as it turns out, I was wrong. Rather, the interior just had a few aggressive Mr. Handys floating around, all of which went down to a handful of hits. Doesn't take long to find the magnet, again always in the end dungeon crate, to which I then return to the airport and complete my task. Because everybody knows we are the main character, our work is never finished, and as such, we are shipped off to Sentinel Site to find some replacement nukes for Prime. I get another good use out of the magical leg braces as I plummet to the bottom floor, rather than slowly making my way down via the stairs. Does mean I am jumped by just a whole horde of ferals, mind you. The full auto spray and pray would have been my go-to here, but due to all the damage upgrades I had for Gunslinger, the semi-autos are more than capable of quickly and efficiently thinning out the flock. Speaking of flock, one of Atoms is here. I could probably convince him to just let me get into the nukes, but at this point, why even bother if I can just let my fists do the talking? With that, the big mini nukes are secured, and we can head back to the Prydwen again, only to be informed that Danse has done a runner. Keeping this brief, turns out I already marked the location he runs off to on the map earlier, while I was doing the settlement labour for the Minutemen. Remember what I said before about Kellogg being the first of two when it come to finishers with a revolver? Well, next would be the eradication of the railroad, but I already did that, so instead all I must do is run in and deal with some unimportant nameless survivors, and then reprogram Pam. On to the penultimate mission, and it's good old mass fusion, for the second time today. This time we are heading there by chopper to spice things up. Naturally, the Vertibird's minigun is not a finger gun, therefore I just sit there motionless while the synths bombard us with lasers. Once the pilot catches on, he lets us bail out, and now I can properly start terrorizing the robots. You know, despite being above level 20, the synths on the roof are still all mostly just that of the bog standard variety. No patrollers or any of the other higher ranks. Makes the dismantling process more efficient, I suppose. Once they're dealt with, I grab the codes I need, and then decide to get one final use out of the freefall leggings as I dive headfirst off the side of the building. Well, it ended up being pointless, as it seems my muscle memory kicked in, as I appear to have instinctually jumped off the side that lands me in the Good Neighbor loading zone, and thus breaking my fall and saving me without any need to negate fall damage. Weirdly disappointing in a way, but it cannot be helped.
Your workflow With Monday.com's intuitive work management,
Re-entering the building via the front door, and I am once more greeted by some synth finger fodder. They do not survive the encounter. Speaking of not surviving, I very nearly kicked the bucket when grabbing the beryllium agitator, as I guess I just thought my outfit was just way too cool to switch off of for a nearby radiation suit. The sentry bot that comes in to try and save the day is certainly stronger than the previous one we fought at the junkyard. By that I mean he actually decides to fight back when in danger. Like most of his kind though, he is defeated by the powers of being far too wide to effectively maneuver around the area that we are fighting in. The Assaultrons prove ever so slightly deadlier, what with their instant kill lasers. They're not actually insta-kill lasers, but close enough. I was luckily able to get a lot of hits in on the first one in FATS, along with a crit before it started stunning me with the combat whisks. I get a few more shots off before retreating, as by the sounds of things they are about to fire. As I am moving away, I get a small chunk of XP, so it's good to know that Ingram is holding her own for once and not getting corner comboed for a change. Her dealing the killing blow to the first Assaultron worked out rather well, as it also meant number 2 was out for blood and not gunning straight for me. While Ingram played tank, whether she wanted to or not, I was able to stand off to the side and get multiple shots in, which very quickly dealt with the final weirdly curvy robot. I stuck around in the main area to help dispose of the remaining synths before making my way back to the airport one final time to begin the final assault on the Institute. Like usual, I don't have the patience to take the robot for a walk, so I just fast travelled to the CIT ruins where the rest of the Brotherhood is already waiting for us. And as per usual, there's not much to go over during this final encounter. We know by now the finger guns are far more powerful than I initially thought, especially considering I figured this would be a kind of joke run, never really expected them to be killing machines. Regardless, that, coupled with a small army of heavily armed Brotherhood troops, means we kinda just bully everybody we come across from here on out into an early grave. I do take out Father with the revolver fingers, so I guess that's technically a third notch on my executions list that I completely forgot about. After we push on through, easily mop up the last of the synths, including the white-haired boy Wonder here, get transported to Mass Fusion for the third time today, and then to end things off, I got what I think was a pretty well-timed animation to go along with the explosion of the Institute. And thus proving, yes, you can indeed beat Fallout 4 with finger guns. It's an interesting run, to say the least. Like I said, those finger guns ended up being way stronger than I could have imagined. Not that I'm complaining, if anything, it was incredibly refreshing after the absolute slog that the Caltraps run was. Regardless, that's going to be the end of this challenge video. If you enjoyed what you saw, consider giving the video a like. If you're interested in more challenges in the future, feel free to subscribe to try and run these videos out fairly frequently. My name's Nurbert, stay safe everyone, I'll see y'all in the next video.
サイバーステップ。おにぎり。私には構わなくても結構です。 いて早く山を降りましょう。
おお、封印の祠で化け物を見たそうだな。神杭の封印は屋敷の東にある鬼ヶ島修験場のさらに奥にある。気をつけて行ってまいれよ。そうだ、このマガ玉を持っていくがよい。マガ玉は己の防御を高めてくれる重要な防具。しっかり装備していけよ。
よろしくお願いします。私少しでもお役に立てるよう頑張ります。 任せてください。どうしました？ありがとうございます。どうしました？ではまた後で。ゆっくりしていってくださいね。開運にゃんころパンにようこそ。 のが出てよかったですね。私興奮しちゃいました。今日も遅くまでお疲れ様でした。毎度ありがとうございます。 今日も遅くまでお疲れ様でした。開運にゃんころパンにようこそ。おめでとうございます。今日も遅くまでまたいらしてくださいね。
はっはいや。はっやでや。
お見事です。
おや
そこで止まれ。
静御前無事か？もう心配いらないからな。
よし。
私の名は源九郎義経。その方やんごとなき将軍家の姫君をたぶらかし、このような場所に連れ出した罪、その命で償ってもらうぞ。そこに直れ、手打ちにしてくれる。覚悟。
違うよ義経ちゃん、この人は私を助けてくれた
の。何？
鬼ヶ島に着いた時、神食いっていう怪物に遭遇して。
なんだって？
すごかったのよ、大きな怪物を追い払って。それで今この人のお役目をお手伝いさせてもらってるの。
そんな危ない目に遭っておきながら何事もなかったように動き回っているところが君らしいといえばらしいが、まったく心配するこっちの身にもなってほしいものだ。君、勘違いしてすまなかったな。非礼を詫びよう。私の名は義経。幕府の守護人としてもののけ討伐の任を受けている。静御前を助けてくれたそうだな。感謝する。しかしもう少し彼女から離れなさい。君、私の刃を恐れぬとはなかなか肝が据わっている。さぞかし腕も立つことだろ
う。ごめんなさい、義経ちゃんっていつもこうなんです。でもびっくりしたよ、また切りかかっちゃうのかと思った。
いや、静御前が怪しいやつと一緒にいたのでな。体が勝手に。
もう
何か用か？
MK6、MK99 ともに源内様に改良していただきました。旧ボディに比べ効率的に給仕業務を遂行できます。何なりとお申し付けください。感情表現があまり変わらないですか？ はい、源内様に改良いただく際にかぐや様から「アイデンティティがなくなる!」と強く希望がございましたので制限を設けております。この妖怪は
胸骨だ。神食いの正気につられてきたか。静か御前、下がっていろ。
MK6、MK9、おめでとうございます。また強くなられましたね。あら？誰かの話し声が。ええ、はい、そのようにすでに誰かと話してるんでしょうか。あら、こんにちは。先ほどすごい地響きが鳴って驚いて様子を見に来たのですが、何があったのですか？あ、そうですか。そんな恐ろしい怪物が。ここは危ないですから、あなたも早く山を降りた方がいいですよ。ええ、そうします。それでは皆さんもお気をつけて。よし、では封印を修復しましょう。これで修復は完了ですね。
よし、これで用事は済んだな。静か御前、江戸へ帰ろう。ご両親も心配しておられる。
私、帰らない。
静か御前、悪いことは言わないから一緒に帰ろう。私は君を迎えにはるばる京都から。
ごめんね、義経ちゃん。でも私どうしてもやらなくちゃいけないことがあるの。義経ちゃんも一緒に来てくれるでしょ？
いや、ダメだ。私は静か御前を連れ帰る使命がある。静か御前、こんな家出まがいのことをしてやることがあるとしても、まず帰ってご両親にお伺いするべきじゃないのか？気まずいなら私が一緒に謝りに行ってもいいから。
いや、どうせあの家で私の言うことを聞いてくれる人なんていないじゃない。義経ちゃんはいつでも私の味方してくれるでしょ。
静か御前、 私は君のためを思って言っているんだ。私はいつだって君の味方だ。だからこそ言わせてもらう。君は将軍。
義経ちゃんまでお父上と同じこと言わないでよ。義経ちゃんの分からずや。
分からずや私より出会ったばかりの者が君のことを分かっているとでも。
だって義経ちゃんたら
いいだろう静御前。その用事とやら私も同行しよう。
一緒に来てくれるの？
ただし終わったら一緒に帰るんだぞ。
ありがとう義経ちゃん。義経ちゃんも一緒に行っていいですよね。
何やらまた言いくるめられてしまったような。まあいい、そういうことだ。これからは同行させてもらうぞ。
義経ちゃん、そんなに睨みつけないで。ほら、せっかく一緒に行くんだからもっと仲良くしよ
う。だからこうして挨拶しているじゃないか。とにかく喜一殿のところへ戻るぞ。
と
ご苦労だったな。そして静御前、義経殿も封印修復にご助力いただいたようで痛み入る。無事に静御前が見つかってよかったですな。
ええ、なんとか。
しかし鬼ヶ島までおいでになった理由が家出とは、なかなか豪快な姫様であられる。
ギーチさん。
それにしてももうすでに胸骨が、思った以上に神食い復活の影響は大きいな。戻ってきたところすまないが、急ぎ使いを頼みたい。鬼ヶ島を出た先の機械ヶ原にある休憩所に行き、その場にいる者たちに鬼ヶ島に避難するよう伝えてほしいのだ。休憩所には島の者だけでなく、各地からやってきた旅人もいる。神食いの容器で凶暴化した妖怪たちが増えてくると、休憩所が孤立してしまうだろう。ことは一刻を争う。頼んだぞ。
頑張りましょうね。
静御前、またついていくつもりか？
もちろんだよ、義経ちゃん。義経ちゃんも一緒に来てくれるよね。
仕方ないな。もう少し同行させてもらうぞ。
I switched from due dates to due dates, and it made